meeting started, let's say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One of the last times I'll get a chance to say this. Clerk Barb Odenscott, can you do roll call, please?
Sure. Councilman Cahill?
Present.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Present.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Present.
Attorney Genesi?
Present.
Councilman Dean?
Here.
Councilman Abbott?
Here.
And I don't need to ask who's present because I can see all of you tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the first meeting in a couple months that we don't have any call-ins, so kind of a sign of things opening back up. Okay, first order of business is make a motion to approve the minutes of the May 21st, 2020 board meeting.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Make a motion to approve the May 28th, 2020 board meeting minutes.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
I move that we approve the June 4th, 2020 minutes.
Second.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye. And I'm glad that Patty took that over because I think the sugar high from the birthday cake we just had before the meeting is kicking in. Yeah. Mm. Thanks, Councilman Cahill, for bringing that in. Appreciate it.
Very welcome.
Yeah.
it
I
was a second.
think that Deputy Supervisor Cataldi looked at the purchase orders and bills this week.
I did. I reviewed them this afternoon. All was in order, and I would move that we approve the bills.
Second.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye. And I went over the prepaid warrants as were submitted by the Director of Finance. Everything was in order. I take a motion to accept them.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
All right, moving right along. Paul Adams, our Finance Director, is here tonight. If you can just give a little description of the budget transfers before we vote on a resolution to approve them.
Sure. These are just routine transfers. Periodically, we go through the expense and revenue reports to try to identify accounts which may have been overspent or appear that possibly they may overspend by the end of the year. So we transfer available funds from other lines to equalize those budget lines that look like they may have an issue.
Yeah.
So there was nothing material really in there.
Right.
I would move that we approve the
Thank
budget
you, Barry.
transfers as presented by the Director of Finance.
Second.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye. Okay, we have a special guest tonight. Chris Bio, our Parks and Rec Commissioner, is here. Before we move on a resolution to transfer up to $150,000 from the Parkland Trust Fund to finance capital improvements to the Recreation Center gym, I want to see if any of the board members have any questions or comments that...
Long overdue. This is a really good project and a good time to do it.
And I will say that I met with Chris the other day on several items. I think I just had it because three of the items Chris, you have the contractor is ready to go.
Yep.
And then there's a couple of them because of bidding process that we're about to go out to bid on.
Correct.
Some of the higher dollar ones.
Yeah, so there's the first three parts are the three smaller pieces. just based on the dollar amounts, include the new curtain, the wall padding recovering, and then what is classified as some of the equipment pieces, the backboards, et cetera.
Right.
So that piece is, and actually, the equipment and the curtain are all part of one. And the third project is the exterior doors, replacing the frames and new doors to the outside. The two pieces that are gonna go to bid would be the painting project and then the gym floor.
Right. Sorry, you were gonna say?
Yeah, these exterior doors, those were the ones that we saw pictures from the FROSAR committee.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
they're
with the rot,
pretty
with the
sad
rusting
shape,
and,
yeah.
How many doors are there replacing for?
there's 4 panels, there's 4 sets of doors.
4 sets of doors?
Yep.
They're not cheap.
It's interesting because,
God.
and the board has said that I really, after July 30th, my getting away with being a rookie and asking questions is over.
July 30th?
June 30th.
Oh, okay.
Right, because the next
All right.
board meeting's July 1st, so I mean,
Oh,
this
it was May
is really my swan song.
I don't
Penny.
know that we gave you to June 30th,
I
but
kind of
that's
just
all
read
right.
it in your eyes,
I
Patty.
Oh, I
Um,
see.
31st.
Was that what it was? Okay, 2000 what, 27? We, do we, and Charlie, Janessa, you might be able to help with this. I was under the assumption, of course, we all know what happens when you assume, that the board would have to approve the bids, but we are gonna be doing a resolution, on the first to go out to bid? Is that how?
Well, it's basically a resolution to publish the information, put
There you
it out
go.
to bid, yeah.
That's the part, now that makes sense. Okay, and that's where
We're on target for, after talking with Barbara the other day, we're all set to go out for July 1st.
okay, so it's for the publishing that makes complete sense. Okay, good. And, well, the only thing I would say is Chris has got a very good plan in place on how to do this in parallel with that center opening back up, phase 4 and all that.
There's going to be some of the parts, that, especially these first few projects, that we'll be able to manage pretty simply, just based on the schedule of what's going on in that building. The gym floor and the painting will be a little different, but again, we know that going in, and like Barry mentioned, it's long overdue, and we'll easily be able to flex our schedule in regards to programs, et cetera, to be able to make sure this gets done.
Well, unless anybody else has any other questions or comments, I am proposing a resolution to transfer up to $150,000 from the Parkland Trust Fund to finance capital improvements to the Recreation Center gym via Capital Project H0227.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilwoman Valdi?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
The next order of business is a somewhat of an interesting one. We, and I guess Paul and possibly Charlie will be best to comment on this. There was a contract back in 2016 for the town to outsource the cutting of lawns to a third party. And I guess there was a study done back then that it was actually more cost effective to have it done outsourced. The contract should have been redone this year, but through a series of things, and especially with the Mark Yeager retiring in Parks and Rec and Chris coming on board, the time passed, and basically we just extended that contract under the same terms for a year. Now, before we do an authorization for the town supervisor to sign that contract extension, I want to make sure the board members, any questions they have or any discussion we have. I did some research before this. I know what we have in the budget this year for that lawn cutting. I think it's line item A7110-40248, $158,000.
Correct.
When we did our Q1 budget to actual, there had been no expenditures yet because we don't cut lawns in February.
Right.
So,
Well, effectively, what you're doing is a nunc-pro-tunc approval.
There you have it.
And now the party is started. As soon as Charlie brings Latin into the game, we are off and running, my friend.
you know, and
I will say, I have not had a chance to look at the 2016 contract for all the details.
it certainly seems as though it fell within line, budget to actual the last few years.
It did.
Certainly, when we go to rebid, which will be, and maybe that comes about as we get into the 2021 budget discussions.
Possibly in the fall.
You know, so,
Any other comments or questions or?
I'd just be interested in seeing a contract because we're paying per cut, X amount of dollars. But I don't know who determines how many cuts. Is it the company that we outsource to? Or is it predetermined in the contract up to X amount of cuts per month? So I'd like to see that contract.
yeah, and John, I think where that'll help is that's gonna help us on our next contract discussions, because I think the ship has sailed on whatever is written
Right.
on 2016, but that's a very good point. And,
Because based on what we paid last year and the approximate cost per cut, that totals up to 24 cuts last year. So
yeah, 'cause I think it's about, you said 6,000, if I'm
6,000, about $6,500 per
Yeah,
cut.
64.35.
Right. So
I know, I wrote it
if
to
you have
you.
a dry summer, you don't need to cut every,
Did you like that I did
so
that?
we're paying per cut.
I wrote you, it's
Been a while since we had a dry.
no, I wrote you an email.
We had a dry summer last year.
Did you?
I think, it was last year or the year before, I think I cut my lawn once in a month.
You already wrote it to
John, they actually mow the highway, and if it's dry,
Charlie?
they don't come every week.
Right,
I have noticed that.
okay. Well, that's my concern. I just like to see the.
It's a valid concern, and it's,
Can I comment on his
yes,
request? Only because he sent me an email earlier today, and I copied him into the actual document that I had previously sent to you. And what happens sometimes is the bid
Right,
document that they submit becomes the contract, but what you probably would like to see is the bid specifications. But when I opened up your email at 5 o'clock and needed to come down here with Ms. McGuire, I looked at the email and I went, he's already got it. But,
so the $675 per cut, that's the document that I have.
correct.
Yeah.
And
That
that's
is the contract.
correct,
I think that's
because
all we have.
sometimes when they submit a bid, it just becomes the contract.
Okay,
And this is the second time this was put out to bid. The first contract was from 2013,
right.
and this is the second time we put it out to bid when the first contract expired, and they were the lowest bidder. So,
Okay,
I have all that, and I'll be more than happy to scan it to you.
awesome.
That's all I want to say.
Well, I know who's gonna be helping with negotiating the next contract. I think Councilman Cahill just put his hand up, didn't he?
Yes, I did. Both hands. I'd be more than happy to be
I think
involved.
you were the liaison of the Parks and Rec Department.
He surrendered.
well, Barbara's taught me this.
I would move
Thank you, Penny.
that we authorize the town supervisor to sign the 2020 lawn care contract extension with Garden Grove.
Second.
Councilwoman Cottrell,
Aye.
Councilman Dean,
Aye.
Councilman Abbott,
Aye.
Councilman Cahill,
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty.
Aye.
Thank you.
Now, next up on the agenda is Mr. French here?
Pick it up.
Outside. There's people outside.
Do you think maybe we're going too fast? Should I slow down?
No,
I'm
You
here.
know
I think
what?
No, it's a good pace.
I'll
you're
slow
doing good.
down. Let's,
Stay
The sides
focused.
have been a little bit long.
Stay
No, you're good.
right up to the podium.
Hello? Hi, and you, it's your decision whether you want to wear the mask at the podium or not. Because I don't think any of us are within
Okay,
6 feet of you, so.
all right. Thank you. I am here to, do you want me to begin, or?
Sure.
Okay.
And actually, Charlie, is it, name and address? We know it's Mr. French.
This is Mr. Kevin French, and I
Yes.
know, I'm going to assume you live at 516 Granger Circle.
Yes,
All righty.
where's my darling wife over here, Deborah?
Thank
Hi,
you.
Deborah.
She's here to make sure I don't screw up. Okay, I'm here to ask permission to erect a 10 by 12 shed on our property. I believe everyone has a survey map of the property, or has been given it, the town has been given it?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm asking for that to be 5 feet from the side of where the fence has been placed, and 15 feet from the back fence area. And I do have some pictures of the property. I'm not sure who I give these to.
Sure, I mean, if you want to hand them to Paul and come right around, and that may actually help. I know there was some,
Did you guys just buy this property?
What's that? December 2018.
Okay.
Was the vinyl fence there when you bought the property?
Yes, it was. And is Rod here? Rod?
No.
Okay.
No.
I spoke to, I came on in to get a permit for the shed. And that's the left-hand side of the house. The first one is the front of the house. That's the left-hand side of the house, close to where the shed is. That's the right-hand side of the house. I think this is important. This is looking from my rear yard, from the back of my property line. You can see there's a conservation easement, but it's just all grass.
It runs right through the house.
And these are the trees that's looking sideways in the rear boundary. So, I'll just go ahead.
The house is built in the conservation.
So I came in several months ago to get a permit for the shed, and was told that there was a conservation easement there, and I would probably have to come to a town board, but they were going to look into whether or not that was still being enforced, because they said they looked at the topography and saw that there were really there was nothing to conserve, because as you can see from the pictures, if you're looking from the rear property line of my property, it's just like an open field cut manicured grass. The only trees are what's in my property, and I don't plan on removing any of those trees. So we purchased a shed from Lowe's. It's a 10 by 12 shed, and I had wrongly assumed that since I did not hear back from anyone, I began putting the shed up. I was promptly notified by a town employee that there was not a permit on the shed, and Rod Potter called me and asked me about it, and asked me to cease and desist as far as building the shed, so I complied immediately, and I've been back and forth. I know I've reached out to you, Supervisor, and also with Rod and I believe Josh, who is the Deputy Commissioner of Public Works, to ask how I can go about getting this taken care of. I received verbal consent from my neighbors. I've even had a couple of neighbors were helping me put that shed up. So I am here to ask, I'd like to know if there's any possibility, Rod had mentioned that he saw notes on the property when the vinyl fence was put in 2009, that the former Commissioner of Public Works said that they were going to have that conservation easement removed, and Rod was going to check on that for me. When I called him back, he said that he did have somebody look into that, and
There have been several properties around the area where the conservation easement has been removed, but mine was not one of them. So I'm here respectfully asking permission to continue building my Lowe's purchase shed.
I have a question.
Sure.
Please.
I've never heard of an easement being removed.
Okay.
I've not heard that ever. There's drainage easements, there's conservation easements, there's maybe a few others, but I've never heard that term ever used, ever. There's been licenses to operate within easements before, but to have easements removed, I would really like to know which one of your neighbors had that done and how they accomplished that.
I don't know. I'm just going, that's the conversation I had with Rod Potter, I believe.
Okay, seeing how, if we do determine to grant a license for this, one of the things we'd want to know is, was there a permit for the fence?
Yes.
There was
I
a,
was told the fence was.
there was a permit for the fence inside the conservation easement, so there should be some type of documentation allowing them to put a fence inside the conservation easement.
Well, the better question is there, did you get a, you aren't gonna know this, but the house was built in the conservation easement. Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah,
Well, a portion, right?
Yeah,
That little
yeah.
back portion.
Yeah.
And we found that out when we did purchase the house. There was a little bit back and forth, and that was brought up with the title insurance, I believe, and they considered that to be okay.
Okay. It's just an odd thing. It's
Yeah,
just,
I'm not
it's,
gonna have to move the house as well.
I understand, but,
Who was the person, Mr. French, who was the person from whom you purchased the property?
I purchased the property from Tara Kincaid.
Okay. I see her name's on the map.
Yes, because this is the most recent survey I got when I purchased the home.
Now, the survey that I have looks like it's been truncated at the bottom. In order, if the town board grants this, yeah, maybe you can bring that up, if I could take a look at it, please.
And Barry, I'm glad you asked that question, because the question I was gonna ask was, Charlie, what's the process of getting rid of an easement? And it sounds like.
Actually, the town board could choose to release it, or release a portion of it. We've done that in the past. I know we've done a few for Joe, where we've released rights of way. We haven't done it often. We
I
actually
just don't
have.
recall it.
It's only been a
you don't recall
portion.
it either?
I've never heard of it. It would only be where the easement is no longer needed. There would have to be a finding by the board that the easement is no longer needed, and then at that time, the board could release it, or abandon it.
Well, then let's contemplate
Okay. This is
granting a license for this, along with at the same time eliminating this conservation easement, which part of their house is already in. There's a fence in it. Doesn't make a lot of sense if it's all grass. Doesn't make any sense to be there. Conservation easements are normally to protect wooded areas.
Yeah.
And that type of thing, and there isn't any, doesn't appear to be any. Whoever did this, maybe it was removed by the developer, I don't know. I don't have that answer, but let's clean this all up at once.
so if we consider removing the conservation easement, do we need a license for the shed?
We don't, but if you would
We
like
need
to
a
start
permit.
doing his shed next week, before we can do
Yeah,
this,
I-
then we would do
I
that.
wouldn't precipitously move tonight to get rid of the easement. I think you need to
No, I'm not
have-
moving to do
Okay.
that tonight.
Okay, all right.
What I said was to consider granting the license tonight, so he can continue, and then
Yeah.
at a later date, move to
And that would be subject,
abandon this easement.
that would be subject to permissive referendum as well,
Okay.
getting rid of it. Not, the license agreement, not so much. The question was raised, and I believe Mr. Abbott raised it, about the fence. The fence is also in the conservation easement?
Yes, I believe
So, according to Lever 7092.
We'll check into whether or not Mrs. Kincaid or Ms. Kincaid had either a license agreement or a permit.
That was actually the previous owner, Louis Grammatico, is the one that applied.
No, before Ms. Kincaid.
Right.
Okay.
Sorry.
And I am on good terms with all my neighbors, and I'd like it to stay that way, but I will let you know that there are sheds up and down the street. I was just really shocked that this became an issue, but I understand.
When was this subdivision built?
Our home was built in 1988.
I was gonna say
Okay, so
25
is that-
years ago,
'cause I mean-
it's 30 years ago.
The conservation easement, I mean, either there were trees there at one point, well, there wasn't a tree where the end of the house is, or why would there be a conservation easement 32 years ago for grass?
Well, I think,
Probably
I think-
treed,
Yeah.
at some point, and the residents came in and cut them down.
Is there a park here, Joe?
No.
No parkland, there's no parkland there?
No, not that I'm aware of.
I
It's all,
think
it's
what
all
we-
like you said, the conservation easement usually is there to engulf trees,
I
afforested.
think what we often see is that the initial intent is to preserve the trees.
Yeah.
And then as the property changes hands over time, tree gets too big, it gets hit by lightning, a windstorm, whatever, and they start taking them down, and all of a sudden, what was a conservation easement is now a beautiful, as yours is, lawn. And one could say perhaps that easement had been abandoned, but it actually formally has not.
Well, and not to belabor the point, but since, as I've said, I'm the rookie, have you ever seen part of a house built into the conservation easement before? Which almost gives more cause to come back for round two and whatever process it is to get rid, because you would,
Sometimes,
Yeah.
when a developer starts his construction, he has to go get an easement because the house he's building is not in the exact area that his first original proposal was to put it. So
he gets an easement to go into the easement?
possibly, I'm not absolutely sure. I know of at least one development in town where many of the homes had to have easements before they could start.
Okay. Well,
At this point,
I think Charlie might have given the best blueprint of this, a license for the shed in the easement, but it does seem to make sense that, you know, in the future, the near future, you might want to look to have the easement, I don't even know what the term is.
It would really be an abandonment.
Abandonment, yeah.
Yes.
And I guess from a property owner standpoint, that would be to your advantage, because obviously,
your house might have
you
to,
know,
It would be what?
your house is, part of your house is an easement. So
Yeah.
it'd be to your advantage to have that
Well,
easement is
but
abandoned.
that's something that only the town can do, town board can do,
Right.
Right.
only.
So we should get
So we
that on
would
the
have to-
agenda then,
yeah.
Well, yeah, but I think you need to discuss it with,
in a workshop maybe.
yeah.
See how extensive the easement, because it continues.
Well, and I think if we start to discuss that, we have to think of how that would have repercussions for other properties in town, not just this one. So we want to give it some thought.
Okay.
Well, I'd also like to, you know, if Grandview Circle, if your neighbors have said, and I can understand sometimes semantics, they said they have gotten rid of the easements, to which we were a little incredulous at one point, but maybe if we look at the other houses that are abutting this, we see a history that there was a history of these conservation easements being abandoned.
There would be, if they were, we'd have a record of it.
You would think, yeah,
So we should look into that.
Anyway, am I oversimplifying this by saying that, are we ready to vote on a resolution to grant a license agreement for the property at 516 Granger Circle for the installation of this shed?
Is that your motion?
Well, actually, Charlie, how much do you want me to read of the actual two-page?
I think just acknowledging what is being, what is being done, that we have the owner, I can actually read it and then send you all, I can read the important portions, all right.
Yes.
What we're doing is, Mr. French is the owner of property at 516 Granger Circle, tax ID 063.15-2-48. He's applied to erect a 10 by 12 kit shed upon the conservation easement that runs across the back portion of his property. That will be in conformance with all height and setback requirements as set forth in our town code, and that in the event that the placement or the size of the shed is not so constructed, he will go to the zoning board of appeals and obtain whatever variances are needed. If the board agrees, then he will have the authority to have the shed or keep the shed there, that he will, he understands this does not apply to any other encroachments or violations or anything else on the property, that this is to him personally, although it won't exactly run with the land, but if the shed is still there when you sell the property, that would be fine, it will continue. But if you take the shed down, then the license agreement ends. If the shed is destroyed or removed by any purpose, or by the town, or by you, or by anybody, you have to reapply for the license agreement. And you'll be responsible for any damage yourself to the shed. We have no responsibility whatsoever, even though it's in our easement. The license agreement, if approved, will be drawn up by me. I will prepare it for your signature and the supervisor's signature. You will pay the filing fees, which I'm going to guess is going to be around $65. It'll be filed in the county clerk's office. Okay? So I will send you, if it's okay, I'm going to keep the map you gave me.
Okay,
And I will send you the agreement, and then you can have it signed and notarized and get it back to me. Okay? If that's, again, if the town board approves it. So if the town board wants to move and second it, they can do that.
Well, I propose a resolution that grants a license agreement for the property at 516 Granger Circle, as described by Attorney Genesi previously.
I'll second that.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Charlie, can I see the picture?
Well, we hope we didn't put you through too much.
No, so how would I go about pursuing having the conservation easement removed for my property?
Well, I guess we have to do a little work on our end.
Okay.
First of all, I want to find out about the fence.
Right.
Because you may need a license agreement, that's going to be a little quicker, I think, to resolve whether or not the fence has A, a permit, and B, needs a license agreement.
See, the thing is that in order to be granted a permit for that fence, whoever constructed it, they would have had to go through the procedure that you're going through today to get that approved. And I don't know that we have any of that on record, so.
When I talked to Rod Potter, I think he's the town building inspector, he said he did see that. And he said, he's the one that told me, well, I see here in 2009 that you applied for a permit for this shed, or Louis Grammatico did, and there was notes on here that the easement was to be, that's where I got removed from. And he looked into it and said that hadn't been the case, but he did see notes that they were going to pursue that, but I guess it just never happened.
Okay.
Well, we'll find out about, you certainly can ask the town board to relieve you of the easement, but we're going to have to find out what the lay of the land is there, because the conservation easement runs, as far as I know, across the backyards of all of your neighbors, correct?
Right, as far as I know, yes.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
we're all set, thank you,
I
sir.
thank you so much for all the time that you helped me with this.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, we had some activity today on our next agenda item, number 6 for the evening, having to do with an amended agreement between the New York State Department of Transportation and the town of Webster for the Ridge Road multimodal corridor project, i.e. sidewalks. And I don't know, if Charlie, you would be best to explain this, or Paul, or whoever, as far as why we are amending this. Is this just
Well,
strictly the dollars amount?
As soon as I see Title 23 US Code and 80% federal funds, 20% non-federal funds, I'll defer to Mr. Adams.
Oh,
Can I ask a stupid question? Just now we're arguing about it. I don't understand. So does this mean that he can continue building? this shed?
Not yet.
Okay.
He has to get the license agreement. The license agreement is not signed and recorded yet.
So he'll hear from someone?
Yes.
Sorry.
It's okay, that's all right, question.
It's not a dumb question at all.
You can take it right off.
You were saved by the bell, Paul.
I'm gonna find
Good,
out.
give me a minute to think.
Yeah.
Charlie, is this related to the increased cost for the right-of-way? Because remember, that was a bit of a surprise.
Yes.
We thought it was gonna be 50,000, and ended up being 260 or something, which drove up the entire cost of the project.
Well, if, are we requesting the money or do we have the money?
Well, I mean, the grant is secured,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, with this particular grant, I think they're gonna pay about 80% of the cost. And we'd be liable for the remaining piece, and there's a small piece that the Regional Transit Authority is going to kick in. I think it's about 15,000.
So the first resolution we had, the sum was 2,010,835, and it's now 2,041,035. So we've had a change in that, and
Yeah. We got an email from Josh.
yes, yes.
Which,
So this is the updated number.
right,
I know.
which outlines exactly why the,
But we're doing this so that we can appropriate the funds
Correct.
to get started on this project.
right.
Right, because it's more money than what we originally thought.
So
They-
the
the bid
grant,
came in
the
higher,
grant
too.
will be correct by this amendment. The grant was for a lesser amount
Yes.
than this.
Yes,
So this amendment
They changed it.
makes it so the grant will be done properly.
Right.
Otherwise, we would be short about $30,000.
right.
I think the grant
And
is
Josh,
usage.
We'll be
I'm sorry,
short.
you had a conversation
20%.
today with the engineering firm that somewhat articulated why the number's been changed to $2,041,000. And I don't know if you wanna,
Yeah, I had a conversation with,
you may need to.
I have a mic.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Okay.
I spoke with Terry Rice from Barton and LaJudas today, who's the manager of the project. And he indicated, although he didn't specify what the difference in amounts was for, he indicated that if the resolution passed by the board needs to be equal or greater than the amount of the grant, or else when we go to submit this to New York State DOT, they would reject it and it would delay the project. So he gave me the exact amount of what the grant is for, and it ended up being about 30,000 more than the original amount that was included in the first resolution.
Okay. You know what, and just for my edification, and actually for the boards, the resolution that we all have in our folders, Charlie, did you draft this, or did somebody else draft this?
I did not draft this.
Okay. All right,
Josh, do you know who drafted this resolution?
I do not.
okay. I'm speculating at best, and I don't like doing that. I like to have us locked down on paper trail, so this might have us table this until July 1st. I do not want to hold up progress, and I don't know, I'm proposing tabling it if, in a vacuum, if we gotta have this done by June 25th or we lose the money, things like that. I don't want something like that.
Do we know that?
I don't, I mean, that's what I'm saying, is
Yeah,
that
okay.
I don't wanna act in a vacuum and find out that, you know,
Just-
unintended consequences. But I will tell you this,
Hold on.
and Paul, just let me finish this and this. When we became aware as a board about a month, 6 weeks ago, of really the added cost of the right-of-ways and all of that, there was an effort made between the engineering firm with our Commissioner of Public Works to reach out to the state to see if we could get some more money. There was a letter sent. I can remember seeing this letter. I wonder if this is the results of getting that additional money.
Could be. I don't know the answer.
Just find out.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I don't have that paper trail. I remember the letter going out, it was late March, and we were, because of the situation, looking for the Department of, DOT is state. Well, wait a minute, no. It was definitely to them, explaining the situation and looking for additional monies. I have not seen the results of that, them coming back and saying, yes, we understand, and yes, based on the percentage, we'll give you more money. Is this resolution basically the end result of that, but we're missing the in-between document that shows the Department of State or Department of Transportation came back and said, yes, we're giving that to you. And since it's not in front of us, and as I said before, I'm speculating at best, I don't, I would suggest we table this until we can do a little more research to find out how we got to this point.
That's your motion?
Do we have a reason to be concerned with the date for the grant? I mean, I'm not suggesting we move this forward quickly, but I also,
Well, that,
Right.
like I said, when I,
Yeah.
was mentioned the unintended consequences, I don't know, obviously we want to get the construction started on this, and
Right.
it's the perfect time to do it, so
Right.
this will, I don't know if they were ready to break ground tomorrow based on us doing this resolution today.
I just don't want a delayed date on this resolution to put the grant in danger. But we don't know that date either, so.
No, and I mean, it is only, Charlie, I mean, not to put you on the spot, but, these are whereas, therefore, whatever. You read this one page, you can't get lost in 10 pages. I don't know, my non-legal mind says we're just parsing out the 80% federal funds and the 20% non-federal funds based on this number.
You're not satisfied with the completeness of this resolution as it is. I think you want to have more facts set forth.
Well, in a non-technical term, if you told me that you drew up this, I'd think that, I know you wouldn't draw it up unless you had all your ducks in a row.
Yeah.
Well, now that I know that you didn't draw it up, I don't know if all our ducks are in a row. Technically.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things we need to find out is what Councilwoman Cataldi has raised, which is the issue of whether or not their time is of the essence here. If it turns out it is of the essence, we could, as a more or less emergency matter, I think, put it on next week's, the workshop's agenda if we have to, and deal with it there. But we need to have more information on this. So, I don't know who can obtain it. I don't know if Paul can do it, or if
I think it's Josh and
Check with you
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Terry Rice from the engineering firm, I would imagine.
Paul says he can.
Yeah, we have the contact for the grant. I can check with them to see if the grant's been amended. I haven't heard either way.
It's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would move that we table this.
Second.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilman Mutaldi?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Okay, the next item actually is going to be tabled. This has to do with the secret determination on the purchase of 39 acres at 280 Phillips Road. Charlie, I think that will be at the workshop on the 25th, is that
Okay.
correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yes, because we have to wait until the 22nd to.
Right, okay.
Right, for the 30 days to run for the interested or involved agencies to get back to us.
Okay.
As of today, as far as I know, nobody's gotten back to us, and I don't foresee that that's going to happen, but by
Yep.
law, we have to wait the 30 days.
I make a motion to table it till the 25th?
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Okay, item 8. Resolution to consider amending an industrial use permit for the property at 1775 Tibor Road. Charlie, I have a rhetorical question. I'm going to assume you did not draft this resolution.
I did not, but I did approve it.
Okay.
It's fine.
That's all I needed to know. Any board members have any questions or comments on this?
No.
I make a resolution. Well, how much of this do you want me to read, Charlie?
I can read the appropriate portions if you like.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, this is a request to, basically to amend an industrial use permit granted for property at 1775 Tabor Road, which is tax account number 066.03-1-24.12. And it's a property where we have already granted an industrial use permit back on July 20th of 2018 for trucking operation. And there's been a request to add 2 industrial use permits, or an amendment of that permit, to add uses of an auto repair operation and a body shop at the same location. The same owner is involved, which is 700 Basket Road LLC is the owner. And it's a type 2 action. So there's really, we've complied effectively with the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And basically that's it. I don't think there's anybody here to discuss the request.
No. Okay. I'll make a resolution to amend the industrial use permit for property at 1775 Tabor Road as previously read by Attorney Genesi.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
The next item, I am going to propose that we table the resolutions on the Ready Projects Engineering Awards. They are not completed yet. We'll table that. I propose to table that to July 1st.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilwoman Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
It's hard with those 2 Cs over
Okay.
there.
No cake for you.
Deja vu. I propose we table the resolution on the Ready Projects funding source, because within that, we also will describe in the resolution exactly how much money it is, and until we get the engineering cost figured out, we won't have that specific number.
Second.
Thank you, until July 1st.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
And I just want the board to know that when we have our meeting on July 1st, which is a Wednesday, because we're going into the 4th of July weekend, it's going to be a pretty robust meeting of ready projects, because we just described the 2 tabled items. but we will also most likely at that meeting have a resolution that is going to be annulling or rescinding the April 16th resolution that we did on engineering awarding that was referenced a pre-existing contract that when it became known, made aware to the board that there was no such pre-existing contract, that nullifies or.
Right, and that should obviously be the first resolution
Yes,
before any of the others.
sequentially.
Correct.
And then at the same time, as you might recall from the minutes, at the last board meeting, we did not approve the April 16th board minutes because there was some uncertainty about that resolution that I just described. I don't see why we just don't clean house on July 1st and approve those board minutes. I don't see why you wouldn't approve those board minutes.
No.
Because
You're approving.
we did vote on a resolution that
Sure,
night,
you're
and we
approving
are
what took place, and I think they've already.
superseding it.
I think everybody has already given their comments, and I think
Yes.
they were all approved, so.
So, just a little food for thought. We'll have a bunch of ready project things to get us all tied up before the 4th of July weekend. The last item before we get into the previously tabled items is a resolution, well, before we get into this, to authorize the supervisor to sign and enter into a municipal agreement with the Village of Webster on the Ready Project MO 65, which is the wastewater and the pump stations. There is a...
This is just the wells section, right?
Pump station.
Water well decommissioning and replacement of the pump station.
Right.
In the packet, and if I remember correctly, Charlie, is this, did the village give us this draft?
No,
Or
they
you did?
gave us a draft, which I
You then,
redrew.
this is what we
This
came
is,
up with.
I redrew this, correct,
Right.
with help from, and input from Mr. Petrone and Mr. Adams.
Kind of off, well, no, it ties into this. I'm gonna be seeing Mayor Byerts tomorrow. Would you suggest, Charlie, that at that time I have he and I sign originally
It would be,
two sets of this?
that would be
We can
great
take
if
one and I
he
take
would
one?
agree to sign it, yeah, if the town board approves it and
Right.
he wishes to sign it, yes, I
Yeah.
would get his signature first,
Okay,
however.
because I gotta believe, yeah, well, they will come at the same time, you know, whether we wanna get into formalities, no, you sign first and then I'll sign next, but they'll come at the same time. And I assume he's seen this.
I have no reason to believe that he has seen it.
Oh, okay.
Was it emailed to him?
No, I did not, because the town board didn't approve it.
Okay.
Yep, okay.
Because procedurally, he'll probably have to put this before his board before he's allowed to sign it also.
Probably, but I think that's right. But this was not completed until a
Right.
couple
I
of
got
days
you.
ago.
Right.
So no,
I
I
agree.
did not send it on. Normally, I would send it on to the village attorney.
Right.
And this was not sent on because
Sure.
this was before
So-
this board
It
tonight.
Well, then
might be,
he won't sign this,
it might
that's
be
fine.
premature to think that he's going to sign it tomorrow.
Totally is, now that you just explained it that way. Remember, the resolution is for the board to authorize the supervisor to sign it. I have my marching orders, and I understand them from Attorney Genesi. These need to be signed by the mayor and myself, really in unison, as you just described. You'd rather see the mayor sign it first and then me sign it. I got it. So, because Barb's taught me, Patty, I'm not supposed to do a resolution, authorize myself.
So I would move that we authorize the supervisor to enter into a municipal agreement with the Village of Webster, MO 65, as part of the Ready Project. Would you like me to read it? No, not
It's up to
necessarily.
you. I don't think it's necessary.
No, I did read it, and I'm very satisfied
It
with it.
speaks for itself, and
Yes.
it's a lot of detail that.
Okay.
I would say very well, Charlie, thank you very much.
Okay.
Second.
Councilman McCarthy?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye. Okay, we had two tabled items, and when we get through with these, we will have the 5 minutes, we'll stay open, or as long as we have to, for call-ins from
what I hope are 1,000 people watching on channel 1303 or live streaming at our website. The call-in number is 585-872-7011. The two tabled items. The first one, I'm going to make a proposal to table the license agreement for the property at 532 Deer Haven for Mr. Dan Driscoll.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Cataldi?
Aye, but I would just like to add that Mr. Driscoll requested that be tabled.
You took the words out of my mouth, but keep the
Aye.
votes going.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Patty, I'm not going to pile on to that. From a customer service standpoint, Mr. Driscoll was very understanding where he was at in the process, and he thought it was a good move to move until the first and get it done. So,
Wonderful.
kind of reiterating what you said. And last but not least, 2 weeks ago we had a very healthy discussion here at the board meeting of why it doesn't make a lot of sense to walk into a meeting and get a 4-page legal document thrown at you and read it and then vote on it. That's a tough thing to do. We tabled this item for that exact reason. The municipal agreement between the County of Monroe and Webster on MO 78, part of the Ready project, it actually, as you read it, because it referenced so much about Sandbar Park and this and that, it was confusing to the naked eye. But once we read it, and Attorney Genesi, you were able to give the legal aspect of it. And I think the board, from what I could see, was pretty happy that they understood that it did make sense, for lack of better terms. So, without further ado, oh no, I don't. Somebody's going to make a resolution.
I would move that we authorize the supervisor to sign and enter into a municipal agreement with the County of Monroe, MO.78, part of the Ready project.
Second.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye. Now, has anybody been watching on Tuesday nights the zoning board of appeals meetings and the planning board meetings? They get phone calls in. Are we just not an approachable group, you think?
I think you're giving out the wrong phone number.
Do you think that's what it is, Mr. Rich? That,
No.
that we leave no stone unturned?
That's it. You explained it so well.
They start out the watching and they're like, I got 16 questions, and then as the meeting goes on, oh, they answered it. Oh, I got nothing. Well,
That can be a shallow or deep suction.
I take it you're saying, Bill, that your water is empty.
Mine is too.
Okay. We could get a call, but before we go, any last words from Councilman Cahill? Comments, questions?
No, other than I'd like to wish Karen Buck a very happy birthday.
Yay.
And thank you, Karen, for all you do for us. We're very fortunate to have you.
Come on, curtsy.
For the people watching, she's the wizard behind the white curtain. Nobody ever sees her. She's producing all this and keeping us in line. Deputy Supervisor
I have nothing to add.
Anybody notice the nice pink mask? That's the first time I've seen a pink mask.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't seen one.
Oh.
No? Carol Capitello gave from the breast cancer, I think it was from the Breast Cancer Coalition, gave my wife one that was you know what I'm talking about? The mask?
I'm not sure it came from the coalition, but I'm sure it was a breast cancer themed mask.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Very nice.
Now, Bill, can you keep it under an hour with whatever you got to say?
Say goodnight, Bill.
Say goodnight. Okay, Barry?
Adios.
Okay, and well, this is not the last meeting that we say to you, Barb, right? Because you will do one more meeting, right? No, you don't. This is your final one.
Oh,
So you know.
Well, then there's a lot to say.
Oh, I thought she had one more meeting.
You know what? I
Not legally.
Barbara, I want to thank you for your years of service to the town.
wow.
And you have run your department with very capable, and your department is in very capable hands. I know that we're leaving it in capable hands as you work with Dolly.
I feel very strongly about that.
Yes, and I just want to say it's been a pleasure working with you all these years, and I want to thank you for everything that you've done to guide us at times when we needed guidance.
Well, I
And
only
to
wish
keep
there
us
was a
on
little more
track.
time.
Which was often.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thanks, Barb.
Yes, thank you, Barb.
Thanks.
It's been a real
You
pleasure.
will be missed.
There's not a big enough flash drive, right?
I thought that, Bill. I thought the first was her last meeting too. That's right.
There we go.
Now I
We got how to
Answer it?
I do know how to answer, I think.
You just,
Barb, help him out.
Hello?
Hi, Supervisor, is Barb leaving?
Well, you can speak right straight to her.
it's Dave Worth.
Is it? It's not your husband?
No?
Is that Dave Worth? How do you know voices in town?
Well, you're pretty good, Barb.
How are you, Dave? Dave is a former police officer for the town of Webster.
Yes.
Oh. Well, yes.
I only know his voice.
Well, then you can explain to Dave and everybody.
I'm
else.
retiring. On my own accord, so stop the rumors, okay?
I didn't, no. I'm just in shock, Barb. I
Why?
want to wish you the very best.
Thank you. I'm healthy, I can leave, right?
Oh, yeah. Who's the new town clerk?
Shall I make that announcement? I think the supervisor needs to
No,
make that announcement.
I think that.
It's all done by the board.
What the plan is, right? We have to do an appointment on July 1st, but go right ahead, yeah.
Dolly McGuire will be the new town clerk. So learn how to write that, Maguire on your checks. Right, Dolly?
Okay.
Okay? You'll come in and meet her, I know you will.
Okay. Can I hassle her like I hassled you?
Sure you can.
Be careful, Dave.
Just because you're a former officer,
Oh, Mary Dean.
liable.
Hey, Mary Dean.
Dave, will you be bringing your dog in when you come? No? Dave,
What's that, then?
will you be bringing your dog with you when you come in?
I can't bring my dog into the town hall.
He's wearing a mask.
I don't know, I remember a time when you did.
He's done it before, yeah, I remember bringing it in.
That, no. Hey,
Yeah?
that was George McKenzie.
Oh, yeah, that
Oh, that's the reason for the sign.
was, rest
Is
is
that the one they used to crap in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
That's what I was referring to.
That was his soul.
Thanks, Dave.
Will you come?
Okay.
Well, Dave, thanks for calling in. We'll see ya. Did I just get on Dave's bad side? I didn't mean to hang up.
No, he has no bad side.
Well,
He might still carry his gun
I
though.
don't know. Oh, great. Well, in that case,
Some great Dave stories.
okay, well, in that case, guess what? This meeting is adjourned.